Disturbing, creepy Halloween night stories. Imagine standing alone on a dark, foggy Halloween night, the wind howling through the trees, and every shadow around you hiding something or someone. Tonight, we're diving into the most disturbing, spine-chilling Halloween night stories. True tales that will make you question if it's safe to leave your lights off. From haunted farms to cursed mansions, these are the stories you'll never forget if you survive the night. The haunting of Miller's Hollow on Halloween night. Miller's Hollow was the kind of town where Halloween wasn't just a holiday, it was a season of fear. Nestled deep in the countryside, surrounded by dense woods that seemed to swallow light, the town had earned a sinister reputation. Locals spoke in hushed tones about the Miller family farmhouse at the edge of town, abandoned for decades, where every Halloween something unexplainable occurred. Children who dared venture too close claimed they could hear faint laughter, whispers, and the sound of footsteps pacing the empty halls, even when the wind was still. It was the kind of place where your imagination could run wild, and on Halloween night, it often became reality. The legend begins in the 1940s when the Miller family mysteriously vanished on Halloween. Neighbors reported hearing screams in the night, a candlelit figure moving in the upstairs window, and strange rituals being performed in the yard. By morning, the house was empty. No trace of the family remained except for scattered toys in the front yard and a lingering, suffocating smell of smoke and decay. Over the years, teenagers and thrill-seekers who dared to explore the house on Halloween would return with stories that made even the most skeptical blood run cold. Doors slammed on their own, mirrors reflected figures that weren't there, and shadows moved independently of any light source. Some swore they were followed home by unseen eyes, feeling the presence of the Miller family long after leaving the property. In the 1970s, a group of college students decided to spend Halloween night inside the farmhouse, hoping to record paranormal activity for fun. What began as playful scares quickly spiraled into terror. By midnight, the house seemed alive. Floors creaked as if someone was walking above them, even though the upper floors were empty. Windows rattled violently, and the students reported hearing whispers in the dark, calling their names one by one. One student, tasked with exploring the basement, descended the stairs and never returned. Panic erupted as the remaining friends searched, but the basement seemed to stretch endlessly, the stairs leading nowhere, walls shifting subtly, and shadows coiling around them like smoke. By the time morning came, 2 students had vanished, leaving only a single notebook filled with frantic, nearly illegible scribbles about faces in the walls and the house wanting us. Over the decades, the house developed a reputation as a trap for those daring to enter on Halloween night. Locals noticed that pumpkins left on the porch would rot in hours, their carved faces twisted into grotesque expressions that weren't made by human hands. Animal sightings became increasingly bizarre. Black cats that disappeared and reappeared, dogs growling at invisible figures, and birds circling overhead in frantic patterns. The land around Miller's Hollow seemed cursed. Compasses spun wildly, radios emitted strange static voices, and anyone lingering too long felt a pressure on their chest, a suffocating weight as if the house itself were reaching out to claim them. The most chilling encounters occurred during Halloween parties in the 1990s. Groups of teenagers would dare each other to enter the farmhouse at midnight, armed with flashlights and bravado. Each time, they reported shadows detaching from walls, claw marks appearing on furniture, and whispers, speaking in a voice that sounded like dozens of people simultaneously. One girl recounted waking up on the porch with no memory of how she got there, her hair covered in soot, and a faint burning smell lingering in her nose. Another swore she saw a man in a tattered suit in the attic, staring at her with hollow eyes before vanishing into thin air. Those who survived often left in silence, terror etched on their faces, too shaken to speak for days. Today, Miller's Hollow is mostly avoided on Halloween night. The abandoned farmhouse stands as a decaying monument to fear, windows staring like dark, unblinking eyes. Travelers report seeing flickering candlelight through broken panes, hearing children laughing in the yard, and catching glimpses of shadowy figures moving through the trees. Paranormal experts who have investigated call it one of the most aggressively haunted sites in the country, claiming the house feeds on fear, grows stronger with each encounter, and refuses to let its victims escape completely. Locals still tell children, "Stay away from Miller's Hollow on Halloween. The night belongs to it, and it never forgets." The farmhouse is more than haunted. It's a living nightmare, an entity that awakens every October 31st, ready to terrorize anyone foolish enough to cross its threshold. The Harvest Moon Haunting. On the outskirts of a small rural town in Pennsylvania, there's an abandoned farmhouse that locals call the Blackwood House. Every year, on Halloween night, people swear it comes alive in ways that defy explanation. The house itself is unremarkable during the day. A two-story wooden structure with warped siding, a collapsed barn, and fields overrun by weeds. But as the harvest moon rises on October 31st, the property transforms. Windows glow faintly with a flickering orange light. Shadows stretch across the ground unnaturally, and the air is filled with the scent of smoke and decay. The Blackwood House has been the epicenter of terrifying events for nearly a century, each story more disturbing than the last. The origins of the Blackwood House's terror date back to the early 1900s, when the Blackwood family mysteriously vanished during a Halloween harvest festival. They were last seen tending to the fields, preparing for a grand celebration, when witnesses reported hearing strange chants and a series of horrifying screams coming from the farmhouse. By morning, the house was empty, but livestock had been found slaughtered in grotesque positions, and eerie symbols were carved into the barn walls. Townspeople whispered that the family had attempted to summon something beyond human comprehension and had paid the ultimate price. Their lives were taken, but something else remained, something that would haunt the property forever. Decades later, thrill seekers and paranormal enthusiasts began visiting the house every Halloween, hoping to witness the supernatural firsthand. Those who dared inside reported unnerving phenomena almost immediately. Doors slammed and locked on their own, forcing visitors into rooms they hadn't intended to enter. Floors groaned under invisible footsteps, and hallways seemed to stretch and bend, as though the house had a mind of its own. Guests often reported seeing shadowy figures dart across rooms, sometimes reaching out toward them, while whispers in a strange, guttural language filled the air. Some who ventured into the barn claimed to have glimpsed ghostly figures of the Blackwood family, frozen mid-ritual, their faces twisted in eternal terror. One particularly harrowing account comes from a group of college students who stayed overnight in the house during the full moon. Around midnight, the atmosphere shifted. The temperature plummeted, and the wind carried an unearthly wail through broken windows. Candles flickered violently, casting shadows that moved independently of the light. One student, exploring the basement, reported that the walls themselves seemed to breathe, expanding and contracting like lungs, while whispering names and voices that sounded both familiar and alien. By the early hours of the morning, the group was in a state of panic. Several claimed they had seen figures standing just inches from them, but when they turned, no one was there. The experience left them shaken, some never returning to the town again. Local folklore adds an even darker layer. Legend says that the Blackwood House feeds on fear, growing stronger with each visitor's terror. The house supposedly traps the energy of those who enter, replaying their nightmares like a loop every Halloween night. Witnesses have reported hallucinations, hearing phantom footsteps in their own homes afterward, and recurring dreams of the house's dark interiors. It's said that the land surrounding the property itself is cursed. Animals refuse to graze there, crops wither unexpectedly, and travelers report sudden feelings of unease and being watched long before they even see the house. Even today, the Blackwood House continues to terrify anyone who ventures near on Halloween. Locals advise against approaching, warning that the house seems to call to the curious, drawing them into a nightmarish world they may never escape. Lights flicker in the windows, doors creak open for no reason, and the faint sound of chanting echoes across the fields. Some swear they've seen ghostly figures tending to the land under the harvest moon, repeating the rituals that cursed them decades ago. The Blackwood House is more than haunted. It's a living, breathing nightmare, a place where fear itself has a presence, and Halloween is the night when it awakens fully, ready to claim the next unwitting victim. The Witching Hour at Ravenwood Farm. Hidden deep in the forests of upstate New York lies Ravenwood Farm, a place shrouded in mystery and dread. By day, it looks abandoned and harmless. A weathered farmhouse, rusting tools scattered across the yard, and skeletal trees swaying in the wind. But come Halloween night, the farm becomes something else entirely. A nexus of dark energy that has terrified locals for generations. The farm earned its sinister reputation after a series of horrifying events in the early 1900s, when the last known occupants, the Hawthorne family, disappeared without a trace on All Hallows' Eve. Before they vanished, neighbors reported strange lights in the house, screams echoing through the fields, and a black mist that seemed to slither along the ground, moving with a life of its own. Over the decades, countless thrill-seekers, ghost hunters, and unsuspecting travelers have dared to explore Ravenwood Farm on Halloween, only to experience inexplicable terror. Visitors describe the house as alive, almost sentient, reacting to their presence with malicious intent. Floorboards creak under invisible footsteps, doors slam with force, and rooms shift subtly, disorienting anyone inside. Shadows twist and move independently of any light source, sometimes forming grotesque shapes that resemble the missing Hawthorne family. Whispers fill the air, repeating names and secrets that no one should know, and a cold, suffocating pressure seems to cling to every visitor, as if the very walls were reaching into their minds. One of the most notorious accounts comes from a group of college students who spent Halloween night in the farmhouse in the 1980s. At first, it seemed like harmless fun, flashlights, laughter, and dares. But as midnight approached, the atmosphere turned sinister. The students reported hearing scratching sounds coming from the attic, muffled crying from the basement, and the smell of burnt incense filling the rooms. One student ventured upstairs alone only to disappear for several minutes. When he re-emerged, his eyes were wide with terror, and he whispered incoherently about faces staring at him through the walls and hands reaching out from the floorboards. The legends surrounding Ravenwood Farm grew darker with each Halloween. Locals claim the property feeds on fear, drawing in those who dare to approach and trapping their energy within the house. Animals refuse to enter the farm, crops wither overnight, and travelers report feeling watched long before seeing the farmhouse. Stories tell of ghostly figures wandering the fields at night, chanting in an ancient language, and lights flickering from the broken windows as if the house itself is performing a ritual. Some even swear that the house can mimic voices, calling out to lost loved ones to lure people inside, never to return. In more recent years, investigators equipped with cameras and audio devices have documented strange phenomena: floating orbs, inexplicable shadows, sudden temperature drops, and objects moving on their own. One investigator reported hearing dozens of whispered warnings in rapid succession, none of which he could understand, and feeling the floor beneath him pulse like a heartbeat. Those who have survived spending Halloween night at Ravenwood Farm describe a lingering terror, nightmares, and the unnerving sense that the house still watches them long after they leave. Today, Ravenwood Farm stands as a monument to fear itself. Every Halloween, locals avoid the area, warning outsiders that the night belongs to the farmhouse and that curiosity can be fatal. The house is not merely haunted, it is alive with malevolent energy, a predator that awakens on October 31st to hunt, terrify, and consume the souls of anyone daring enough to step inside. The witching hour at Ravenwood Farm is a time when reality blurs, shadows take form, and the line between life and the supernatural is obliterated. A night that promises terror for those bold or foolish enough to enter. The Curse of Black Hollow Manor. Black Hollow Manor sits at the edge of the forgotten town of Ash Grove, New England, hidden behind twisted trees and fog-laden fields. By day, it appears as a crumbling relic of a bygone era, a sprawling mansion with shattered windows, ivy crawling up its stone walls, and a rusted iron gate that squeals whenever it's moved. But as night falls, especially on Halloween, the manor transforms into a place of pure nightmare. Locals speak of it only in whispers, warning travelers to stay away, claiming the house hungers for those who step too close. They say the manor is alive, and every Halloween the spirits trapped within awaken to feed on fear, drawing unsuspecting victims into its endless labyrinth of darkness. The manor's dark history dates back to the 1700s, when the Blackwood family first built it atop a hill overlooking the surrounding forest. The family was wealthy and influential, but rumors whispered that they practiced forbidden rituals, summoning spirits from beyond the veil. In 1734, during the height of Halloween celebrations in the town, all members of the family vanished mysteriously. The mansion was left abandoned, yet witnesses reported seeing flickering candlelight in the windows and hearing the echo of footsteps in empty halls. Over the centuries, strange occurrences were noted. Travelers disappearing, livestock slaughtered under inexplicable circumstances, and travelers returning with tales of shadowy figures in the fields. It was as if the land itself had been cursed, refusing to release the souls trapped there. In the 1920s, a wealthy historian named Edgar Fairchild purchased the manor, intrigued by its notorious reputation. Edgar spent years studying the manor's history, convinced that uncovering its secrets would cement his legacy. He invited scholars, mediums, and paranormal experts to the estate to witness its phenomena. On Halloween night in 1927, Edgar and his guests reported terrifying events that would go down in legend. The air inside the manor turned icy, and the walls seemed to pulse with an unnatural heartbeat. Shadows stretched and twisted along the halls, forming grotesque shapes that resembled screaming faces. Whispers echoed through every room, repeating the guests' names and secrets in voices that were unmistakably human yet impossibly distorted. One by one, the visitors became disoriented, some disappearing entirely into the walls or floors, never to be seen again. Edgar himself vanished, leaving behind only his journal, filled with frantic scribblings about the house feeding, watching, and waiting. The legend of Black Hollow Manor continued into modern times, attracting thrill seekers and paranormal enthusiasts daring enough to enter the estate on Halloween. Those who have survived recount the manor as a living nightmare. Floors shift beneath your feet, hallways stretch into impossible dimensions, and rooms appear and vanish without warning. Objects move independently, from heavy furniture sliding across rooms to doors slamming violently. Many visitors report seeing figures in the corners of their vision, pale, hollow-eyed humans that vanish when looked at directly. Some claim to have encountered the spirits of the original Blackwood family, eternally replaying their final night, their faces twisted with terror, their movements jerky and unnatural as if caught between life and death. One particularly harrowing account comes from a group of 5 friends who spent Halloween night inside the manor in 1998. Initially, they laughed and joked, thinking the stories were exaggerations. But as the clock struck midnight, the manor's true nature revealed itself. The temperature plummeted drastically, frost forming on windows, and a thick, choking fog filled the hallways. They heard doors creaking open, even though they were all locked, and footsteps echoed in rooms where no one stood. One friend, a young woman named Claire, entered a bedroom alone and found the walls covered in handprints that weren't there moments before. She felt invisible hands clutching at her, leaving deep bruises on her arms, and a voice whispered in her ear, "You don't belong here." Panicked, she ran from the room, only to find that the hallway had transformed. Walls elongated, ceilings lowered, and shadows seemed to crawl along the floor toward her. The friends regrouped in the grand ballroom, hoping to find a way out, but the doors had vanished. Mirrors along the walls reflected not their own images, but twisted, screaming versions of themselves, some with missing eyes or mouths sewn shut. One friend, Thomas, claimed he saw a figure standing behind him in the mirror, its face obscured by shadow. When he turned, the room was empty, but he felt a searing pain across his back, like invisible claws raking his skin. Hours seemed to stretch into an eternity, with time losing all meaning. When the sun finally rose, only 3 of the friends staggered out of the manor, terrified beyond comprehension, their minds fractured by the horrors they had witnessed. The cursed energy of Black Hollow Manor is said to grow stronger every Halloween. Locals insist that the house senses fear, feeding off it, and that anyone drawn there on All Hallows' Eve risks being trapped within its supernatural grip. Strange phenomena have been reported even outside the house. Travelers hear whispers in the woods, distant screams carried on the wind, and fleeting glimpses of shadowy figures moving among the trees. Paranormal investigators who have spent hours recording the manor claim their cameras malfunction, their audio devices pick up hundreds of overlapping voices, and the house seems aware of their presence, responding to fear with intensified activity. Today, Black Hollow Manor remains abandoned, yet it exerts a palpable presence over the surrounding land. On Halloween night, no one dares approach its gates, for those who have are never quite the same. The house is alive, a predator that awakens once a year to hunt, torment, and claim new souls. Black Hollow Manor is more than haunted. It is an entity, a living nightmare, and a warning that some places are so drenched in darkness no one should ever step inside. Each Halloween, the manor waits, watching, knowing, and feeding, as though the curse itself grows hungrier with every passing year. And for anyone foolish enough to cross its threshold, escape is not guaranteed. The house remembers, it waits, and it never forgets. If you thought that was terrifying, just wait until next Halloween. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss another spine-chilling story. Remember, sometimes curiosity comes with a price. And tonight, you've already stepped into the shadows.